Despite the fact King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword had good acting, good dialogue and well done special effects, it was still held by the majority of critics to be a poor quality film. And I believe the reason why was because of one single flaw. It is a flaw that is in almost every story, however King Arthur was particularly rife with it. King Arthur failed to please the critics because it had an abundance of inefficient storytelling. What is a moment of inefficient storytelling? Quite simply, it's when an element of a film has little to no purpose. Before we analyse how King Arthur was inefficient, I think it might make this point a little easier to convey if instead we first look at an example of efficient storytelling. For a good example, we need look no further than Star Wars: A New Hope. So for those of you who have seen this film, what purpose did the first scene of A New Hope have? How was it in service to the rest of the film? Well, firstly, it establishes the villain, Darth Vader. It establishes the rebels, the Empire, as well as the fact that they are at war with each other. It tells the audience the plot point that Leia has been captured, and it kickstarts the story in the form of Leia's message that sets the whole movie in motion. That is a lot of purpose served in only one scene. Now let's look at the opening scene to King Arthur and do the exact same thing. For those of you who haven't seen this film, it opens with a scene of gorgeous spectacle. There is a siege on Camelot where all hope seems lost before, in a very visually entertaining sequence, the king leaps onto an elephant and assassinates the leader of the siege. Afterwards, the next scene is a coup where Arthur's parents are killed, the opening sequence not being the event that caused this coup in the first place. The two events are essentially unlinked. Now, I want you to ask, what was the purpose of that scene? How did it contribute towards the plot? When we look at A New Hope, we can clearly point out the ways in which the opening scene serves the film as a whole, but when we do the same for King Arthur, we realise that the opening has no real purpose. It is only referred to in the rest of the film by a few throwaway lines of dialogue. If the first 7 minutes of the film were to have been left out from the final cut, the movie would have still made perfect sense. That is a classic sign of inefficient storytelling. And if you yourself are a writer or director, this is an excellent question you should be asking for every scene of your work, because if your scene serves little to no purpose, it needs to go, or at the very least be heavily altered. And the opening scene is just one example in a film abundant with various inefficiencies. The worst example is in the latter half of the film. There is a plot to assassinate the king, which ultimately fails. Then there is a long drawn out sequence where they kill some guards and escape the city. During this whole ordeal, no characters get any development, no new information is learned, only a few very minor characters die, and once it is all over, the plot is in the exact same place it was before, with the exception of one of the very minor characters being captured. This whole sequence is 25 minutes long, and it suffers the exact same flaw as the opening scene. If it were to have been left out on the cutting room floor, the movie would have still made perfect sense without it. That is over half an hour of runtime that could have been turned into deleted scenes. And on top of this, there are plenty of scenes which set up elements of world building to never again even refer to them. Ritchie sows the seeds of storytelling only to never reap them. One example is halfway through the movie, Arthur is sent to what is only referred to as...
He needs to go to the Darklands.
That's not happening.
When he is there are ruined ancient buildings, piles of skeletal remains. When I first saw this scene, this truly intrigued me. What happened in these Darklands? Who were these people? Why are they all dead? And after raising these questions, I was only left quite disappointed because they were never really answered. Nobody ever talks about this parallel dimension ever again. It's almost like the only reason these Darklands exist is to have a cool backdrop for the protagonist's training montage. Again, this whole sequence in the Darklands could have been easily cut and the movie would have still made perfect sense without it. Another example of seeds that are not reaped is how at the start Ritchie tells us who the mages are and their history with the humans.
Let us not forget that before Mordred, The Majors lived among us in harmony. Our relationship with them was always peaceful.
That was before they tasted power.
Alright, so Ritchie has set up this element right at the start of the film that the Majors are a subjugated race because their leader rose up and tried to overthrow the king. Alright, great, an interesting concept, which I can't wait to play a major part in the rest of the film. Only this world-building element Ritchie went out of his way to set up is never used again. It plays absolutely no role on the plot. There is no scene where we see Majors being treated like second-class citizens. Again, if the scene where they tell us the law were to have been cut, you guessed it, the movie would have still made perfect sense. And the thing is, this movie's inefficiencies are not only in the scenes, but also in the characters as well. So in this film, Arthur has 7 supporting characters, most of which have quite a large amount of dialogue. So this character, Sir Bedivere, for those of you who did see the film, what is his personality? What purpose does this character serve? He certainly has a very large amount of dialogue. Really, the only purpose he serves is to be a medium through which Ritchie can deliver exposition. That and also ticking off the diversity box. Or this character, Goose Fat Bill, what purpose does he serve? Again, he has plenty of dialogue and is present in a number of scenes, so how does he add to the story? The entire purpose of this character is to shoot a few arrows that ultimately kill 2 glorified extras. That is the only thing he does in the entire film. Or you could look at the mage. She has a lot of dialogue and was present for the vast majority of the film. However, what did she add to the story? She again just kind of exists on the screen. Granted, she uses her magic to save the protagonist a few times. However, it would have required almost no effort to rewrite the script so those 2 times Arthur was saved is not by magic, but by some other, more realistic means. Some of the supporting characters, such as these 3 guys, are present for a number of scenes, however serve 0 purpose. They provide no service towards the narrative, they have no character arcs, and quite frankly only serve to distract us from the things that actually matter. Now, should all of these characters have been cut? No. However, the fact we have so many characters in this entourage is a bad thing because they all blur into one. Instead of having 7 secondary characters, it would have been far more effective and efficient to simply have 2. For example, have the character that delivers the exposition also be the one who shoots the arrow, and also saves Arthur from being executed. If you look at any example of a good entourage in fiction, each and every member of that team should, in theory, have their own unique personalities and serve a clear, easily definable purpose. Star Wars A New Hope is again a good example of this. Obi-Wan Kenobi not only serves the very clear purpose of being Luke's mentor, he also has a very distinct and memorable personality. Han Solo also has a very unique personality and serves the purpose of being the pilot that helps transport the other characters around the galaxy. Now granted, in Star Wars there are some exceptions, such as Chewbacca and R2-D2 having relatively forgettable personalities. However, in general, the original Star Wars trilogy is not only good at giving each member of the entourage a clear purpose, but also a strong, memorable character. So what happens when you take that away? When you have an entourage where the characters serve little to no purpose and have forgettable personalities, you get King Arthur, the legend of the sword. So if you are a writer or director, this is an excellent opportunity to learn a very important lesson. The lesson is that each and every scene of your story needs to have an absolute minimum of one purpose. And this applies to your characters too. The more ways in which an element of your story serves purpose, the more efficient and theoretically the more compelling that story becomes. Thank you for watching today's video. I have a pretty exciting announcement to make. I am going to go part-time at my current job. I will be able to dedicate 4 days of my week into YouTube instead of 2, and as a result of having this extra time, I am not only going to be able to make more content for this channel, but I'm also planning to start a second channel in the very near future. I love creating video essays, as I think they are a wonderful way of conveying ideas in an interesting way. However, there is a whole wealth of ideas and topics I would love nothing more than to tackle that are not related to film or TV. So this second channel will be about topics which I personally am fascinated with, from science to philosophy to psychology. I've already written a few scripts for these videos, and personally I can't wait to finally launch it. Also, if you guys are or know a graphic designer, feel free to drop me an email, as currently I'm looking to hire a professional to create the artwork for my next channel. Anyway, thanks for watching, please do like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time on The Closer Look.